When you look at some of the other positions that aren't as obvious as linebacker, safety, what are some other positions that you think they may look to upgrade or at least you know solidify some depth in later in the draft?
Well, this is a deep wide receiver draft, and there might be a bunch of wide receivers that go in the first round, but this seems like it's a fairly deep wide receiver draft, and you could potentially bring in a guy. Obviously Rashard Higgins is still out there, right? And that tells you that the Browns don't necessarily view bringing him back as a priority if they want to bring him back at all. So if you can go in the draft and find your third wide receiver or fourth wide receiver later in the draft, that would be great. And this is a regime that back in 2016 they took a bunch of wide receivers later in the draft. Now they didn't really all work out, but this is a regime that has, with Andrew Berry at least, kind of sees value, I think, in late round wide receivers. So I would keep an eye on that position, and that's one that I kind of have circled that if things start to fall, they have two third round picks. So maybe you find a receiver in the third round that you really like.
Can you see him taking another maybe developmental offensive lineman as well? Because they did have a number of holes to plug in, and they you need to get that position where you can fill in from your depth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a possibility, especially at right guard. Right now, you're looking at either Wyatt Teller or maybe a Drew Forbes, someone like that. That's still a position that's out there that hasn't been addressed. So maybe you can find an interior lineman again on day three in the draft that you can bring in. Maybe like a Forbes. He's a small school guy, played tackle somewhere. I don't know. I don't have a name to attach to it, but maybe you find a guy that can come in and compete at that guard position. And if he's not ready to step in and start this year, down the road, maybe he can step in and play.